محمد.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is around the year 1999. I'm about 19, 20 years of age, actually 18 years of age. And I was first exposed to Arabic class, meaning a really great creative teacher who made the subject interesting and actually built confidence that you can learn this thing without, sacrificing the rest of your life. Before this, I loved the idea of Arabic, and I was fascinated by the language as I heard scholars talk about it and analyze words from the Quran or a hadith or something like that. But I also thought that this is way too hard for me to learn, and I also thought that it's way too difficult for me to make the sacrifice to probably leave my home in the US and go somewhere else and learn this language. All of this is going to be impossible. But a teacher that I met, alhamdulillah, and I took a short course. This is my first actual course in Arabic after having left my home country of Pakistan. And I've lost most of my Arabic anyway, except for just reading the Quran. The thing that came out of that was a conviction. Like, this is, as hard as it may be, the first steps aren't hard, and you can do a little at a time, and you don't have to be overwhelmed by the oceans that you don't know, but you can just take comfort and be inspired by the little that you can learn at a time. So that was his accomplishment. I give him complete credit for instilling that bug inside of me. So I continued studying Arabic on my own as much as I could. I also realized that if I'm in this position that I really want to learn Arabic to understand the Quran, there must be a lot of people out there that want to learn it too. And they must feel the same intimidation that I personally felt. So kind of the beginnings of the idea simmering was that I myself thought of myself as a typical person that is in a typical situation that many other Muslims find themselves in. So how am I going to address this problem for myself? So my own studies, I went from one book to another book to another book, from one teacher to another to another. Arabic is not one thing, it's like 100 things you have to learn. And for each one of those things, I went to a different teacher. Right? To further your conversation, I went to somebody else. To further my ability to read a text, I went to somebody else. For grammar, I went to somebody else. For rhetoric, I went to somebody else. So, but I would imagine also most people are not going to do that. They're not going to go from, one place to another, to another, to another, and they may not even have the resources to do that. So I started teaching a little bit of Arabic and taking a crack at teaching. And I really enjoyed teaching it, and I noticed that students are really enjoying learning the method with which I had learned from my teacher, and I had made my own additions to it. And so I had a full-time job. I was going to college full-time, and I was also teaching kind of part-time, a little bit of Arabic on the side, just to kind of, for myself, for review purposes. But I enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed it more than college. I enjoyed it more than my job. This is something I really, really enjoyed. And when I graduated, I got into full-time technology work. I was in IT industry, and I was in the design development industry. So I used to work with a team of developers and programmers and things like that. And I did this for a few years, maybe 4 or 5 years. And while doing that, and I enjoyed doing it to an extent, what I really loved doing was teaching Arabic, so I kept teaching it on the side, just as a voluntary thing. And a time came where, the dot-com bust happened, and, a lot of people were laid off, including myself. And it gave me time to think, should I look for another job in the same industry, or should I try to figure something else out? And so I thought maybe a good place to teach Arabic would be an Islamic school, because that would be a job where I could teach. So I got a job teaching at an Islamic school, except the Islamic school makes you do what they want you to do, not what you want to do. So I was actually teaching math and English at the Islamic school. I wasn't teaching Arabic. And even though I really enjoyed working with kids, and I think that's a huge part of my career, learning to teach by teaching children, because they test your patience, my passion was still teaching Arabic. And by Allah's decree, an opportunity opened up. I was teaching a small seminar at a masjid, Arabic studies, and a professor of Arabic came up to me and said, I really like how you teach. I'm leaving my job at the community college. I want you to take my job. And I was like, I'm not a professor of Arabic, I just teach this stuff, but I'm not that good. He goes, trust me, you're that good. So he put me, I don't know how he got this done, but he put a good word in for me at Nassau Community College in Long Island. And I started teaching Arabic 101 and 102 at the college. And that was another really great experience, teaching college students. But it was Arabic that you don't teach Quranic Arabic, you teach like conversational Arabic. And so as I was teaching it, even though I enjoyed it, I wasn't fulfilled, because what I really want to experience for myself, and I want others to experience, is what I experienced when I was learning Arabic. Like every time I learned a lesson, something about the Quran just got unlocked. Something about my prayer just got like decrypted. You know, I could figure it out now. So these were these moments of discovery that were happening. That's not going to happen if you teach people how to say, "How was your day?" and "Can I order a shawarma please?" or something. That's conversational Arabic. It's not inspirational necessarily. So though that career was very prestigious and I really enjoyed doing it, I started thinking, how do I take this to another level? How do I teach exactly what I want to teach? So kind of from there, the idea of doing something on my own terms, outside of the scope of a larger organization, kind of entirely on my own, self-employed sort of thing, that came up. And the first thought was, you should do this under a masjid, or you should do this under a school, so they can fund you and they can provide the resources, because you don't have all the resources. And I realized very quickly that actually working under not Muslim organizations necessarily, but non-profits, is very difficult. They have a certain set bureaucracy and they do things a certain way, and making changes in these organizations is very difficult. It takes a long time and process. And you can even lose your motivation while you're working within that spectrum. So the most motivated people around me that I've ever seen are people that are self-driven and are entrepreneurs. So I tried to kind of figure out how we could do this in a way that can, provide a living for myself. It could be a career, but at the same time I could spend most of my time doing what I love. And it's a lesson I've learned in life is, if you do what you do for money, you're not going to get far. If you do what you do because you love it, you absolutely love it, and whether there was no money or all the money in the world, it wouldn't make a difference to you. You will get very far in it, and you'll be very successful in the worldly and in the religious sense, if you can be clear and have a sincere love for what you're doing. That's the first condition.
I've noticed that he uses most of his leisure time to work on projects, to work on his upcoming goals, and even with his just hanging out and just talking about random things, while other people would usually talk about things that have nothing to do with their profession, he's still talking about ideas. So I think that's the main thing, is his dedication.
So anyway, I got a few of my friends together and said, look, I want to teach Arabic full time. The few classes I've done in New York have gone really well. I think I want to make this like a thing. And I said, you're crazy. Nobody's going to come to Arabic class. Arabic classes are so boring. It's never going to work. And that's exactly what I needed to hear, because I don't want friends that are just going to say, yeah, it's a great idea, go for it. And, I wanted critics. I wanted people to say, okay, look, I know it's not going to work. I agree with you. How do I make it work? How do I take this idea that is bound to fail and figure out a way to make it succeed? So for 6 months, discussions went on between me and my close friends from business school about how do you make something like this work on its own and not do fundraising, not ask other people for financial support, and make this work for yourself and for others as well. How do you make an education like this affordable for others, and at the same time it's something that can pay your own bills too? Because I didn't want to be dependent on an organization or on charity. So at the end of these discussions, I was ready to kind of take the leap and jump into this full time. But I didn't jump into this full time, and this is important. I didn't jump into it full time until I had done a few experiments. I had done a few experiments under masjids, under other organizations, and they went really, really well. So I know that it works. So it's not just something that works in my head. I've actually tried it out, and that's really important before you jump, headstrong in. At the end of the day, with entrepreneurial kind of ventures, you have to have a little bit of crazy in you to jump in. But that doesn't mean you don't test the waters first. You test the waters, but it does require a leap of faith, because jumping into something full-time means you have to abandon other more steady sources of income and other more stable career paths and things like that. You might have to do that. You can only juggle things on the side for so long until a time comes either you have to let it go or let it take over you, right? So I don't know how I convinced my wife, but I did, that I want to do this full-time. I'm going to teach Arabic full-time. And she said, you're crazy. I don't think it's going to work. But if you really think it's going to work, go for it. So alhamdulillah that she said yes, because had she not been comfortable, I would not have done it. That's my other advice to entrepreneurs, that if you have a good idea and you want to move forward with it, have family support. Get the family support before you move on, because that's one of the goals for entrepreneurs should be they want to find a balance between the thing they love doing and all the other things that are important in life, that they can balance between all of those things. So alhamdulillah, I started teaching full-time, and as I worked in the community and taught, I would get the next class recommendation from somebody within that class. I have a cousin in New Jersey They wanted to see if you can come teach there. I have another uncle in Louisiana. I want to see if you can come teach there. And through word of mouth, Bayyinah courses started going from one location to another, to another, to another, to another, until the list of locations that I had to go to that were on my calendar were about 200, like, waiting list. And that's just me on a laptop putting a website together because of my design background and saying I teach Arabic. And word of mouth did the advertising. I didn't put an ad on Google. I didn't, you know, I didn't submit any sort of flyers anywhere. I just kind of said, if you like this class, then let other people know, and then that way we'll, you know, we'll do it. So I developed that kind of formula of spreading the program word of mouth, and that's kind of the beginnings of the Bayyinah Institute, how it all got started. So as expected, when starting this thing, there were a lot of challenges, and I want to highlight some of them first. When you are working for somebody, when you have a job, then your job description is limited, right? So you're an accountant, you just do accounting. If you're a teacher, you just do the teaching. When you're the head of an organization, you do the accounting, you do the marketing, you do the organizing, you do the scheduling, you do the taxes, you do the curricular development, you're the teacher, you're the customer, you're everything in one person. And actually in the beginning, you can't rely on anybody else to do anything else because they don't think the way you do. They don't understand what needs to be done in the way that you understand it. And delegating in the beginning is very, very hard. Actually, that's the hardest thing of all. So, and actually, even if you do delegate, you'll find people will disappoint your expectations. Nobody thinks about your project like you do. It's your baby. It's like, it's your thing, and it's very hard to get other people to care. So in the beginning, I took on all of those roles. I was literally handling the A to Z of this organization, which means if a full-time job is 40 hours a week, this was at least 100 hours a week. I mean, it consumed my life. That also meant that it was taking time away from family, it was taking time away from friends, it was taking time away from myself. It was just all day, every day, this is what I was doing. And it got to a point where I couldn't sustain that anymore. And I realized that if I don't get reliable help, and help that is, that can delegate these tasks to, that this thing is gonna fall apart, and I will fall apart. And that's not what I want to have happen. So, alhamdulillah, I figured out a way to incentivize help. I couldn't afford to hire employees yet. I didn't have the money for it. So I gave, you know, I hired a scheduling contractor. Well, the person's job was to send the advertising materials ahead of time, do the scheduling, send the email communications. You know, I designed the flyers because I was the designer, but getting them printed and shipping them, all the logistical stuff. One person, and so if this class is successful, a percentage of the proceeds that come from this class that go to the masjid, another percentage will go to you. So they have a vested interest in making sure the class is successful. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's their task. And they're not a cost on me. It's not a fixed cost because they only make you know, some salary if the class goes well or if there is a class. So I don't have money to give until money actually comes in. So there's a financial solution in that sort of setup. And alhamdulillah, that worked out greatly. It was a tremendous solution, and it started taking a lot of burden off my shoulders. So now where I was doing 100% of the tasks of this organization, all of a sudden I was only doing 40% of the tasks of the organization. So one of the last challenges I want to highlight is working specifically with the Muslim community. Like entrepreneurial ventures can be for anybody, right? You could sell shoes for all that matters. You could teach French or Spanish or whatever, you know. But if you're going to do something entrepreneurial specifically for the Muslim community, you need to understand a couple of principles, right, that I understood early on, alhamdulillah, and they helped me tremendously. Number one, the most important thing to us is goodwill. It's the most important thing. You know, goodwill, for example, if I'm going to go teach a course, obviously I can't survive teaching a course if people don't pay tuition, but I make the announcement openly. If you can afford this tuition, you're welcome to pay it. If you can't afford it, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to sign a waiver or say, please exempt me or request. Just come and sit, have a seat. Don't worry about it. Relax. Nobody's going to ask you. And you know, that gesture of goodwill, on the one hand, business people would say, you're crazy. What are you doing? You need to have tickets and stamps and approvals and badges and people checking your entrance at the door and all of that. And I said, no, we're not doing any of this. You walk in, if you can pay, fine. If you can't, that's fine too. It's all good. Just make dua for us. What that did for me and for this organization was something amazing. Most of our courses, and we've taught hundreds of them, there's 95% or higher tuition collections. Not because we ask people over and over again, but because of the goodwill. People say, I actually wasn't going to pay, but since you said, if you can't afford it, it's fine, don't worry about it. I was like, yeah, I can afford it. I'll just do it. In other words, people respect goodwill. That's what I've come to learn. You have to expect people to show integrity. You don't have to force them to show integrity, especially with Muslims, you know. When you give respect, you get it back. And so that was one of the driving principles for this organization. The second principle with Muslims is that you have to, your passion for doing something will be obvious to them. Like, you don't have to sell your services. You have to show why what you're doing, if you're passionate about what you're doing, people will see it anyway. Like, I don't have to tell people to come learn Arabic with me. I don't have to tell people to come study Quran with me. I just teach Quran, and then students come to me and say, can I study Quran with you? Right? They come to Sheikh Abdul Nasser and say, can I study Salat more with you? Can I do? Why? Because we're not actually, very minimally is it advertising. For the most part it is, if you see value in what you're doing, and you know that there are other people that have value in what you're doing, just focus on what you're doing, not on selling it, not on impressing people. It's too fake, it's too shallow, and people see right through it. People are smart. From children to adults, they're smart. They'll see right through it. Don't try to sell your product. Just focus on excelling in what you're doing, you know? And then people just gravitate towards you. This is actually a Quranic principle. وَتَبَتَّلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا. If you focus on something, it'll cause other people to focus on it too. And people will gravitate towards it. And that's one of the other driving principles in the organization. If you're going to do something, be the best at it. You know, if you're going to take on a project, nobody could do that project like you can. If you're going to teach something, nobody teaches better than you can. That has to be the case. You have to keep pushing yourself towards better and better and better, right? So that was the next kind of major challenge for the company. Alhamdulillah, we've crossed a few challenges. And what that's done is, we can't take a back seat. Now we just kind of aim our goals even higher. We set the sights to even bigger and bigger things to challenge ourselves even further. And alhamdulillah, the things that are lying ahead of us, they make the things we're doing right now look like nothing, like they're dwarfed by the efforts that are coming ahead, inshallah ta'ala.
The thing with him is he has a new idea every minute. And you know, as an organization, you have to kind of go through a strategic process of how to get from point A to point B and execute a new idea that's coming up every day. We've got new things going on. And being able to come up with good ideas is his forte, mashallah.
But as time went on, even the travel, because there's like 200 locations and I don't want to go to all of them, and it's just too much travel. I'm away from home too much. So I had to figure out a way to cut down the travel and do less of it. Because I used to teach courses that were 10 days long at a time. So I decided to teach weekend-long courses, so I would be able to spend more time with my family. And actually, the weekend-long courses were far more successful than the 10-day courses. In other words, the less you expect from people, the more they're able to give you. If you expect more from people as far as sacrifice, they're able to give you less. So the weekend courses started becoming far more successful. And as that happened, I decided there needs to be more people that are doing this. So Sheikh Abdul Nasser came along, and even though I tried a bunch of people, he and I really jived together. And mashallah, he's a very charismatic person. And his course is also very unique. So that, you know, sort of came along. But the next challenge was, my big challenge was, I want to do other things with Bayyinah, but to do other things, I have to let go of things that I'm currently doing, because I can't be doing all of them. So I have to replace myself, literally replace myself with the things that I used to love doing and they were mine, but I had to let go. So as an organization grows, the biggest challenge is, how do you let go and put people in place that are going to do a job as well as you did or better? That's the real challenge. And that's really the birth of the DREAM program. The DREAM program is a program for students to learn Arabic full time. But more importantly, for me, it's a place where I can train my replacements. Right? So the top tier students, the one I see like real talent in, I keep them. I don't let them go home. My TAs here, and most of the people that are doing work at the organization are my students. They've graduated from here. They know how I think. They know how I teach. They've already been doing it for a couple of years. So they're my perfect replacement. If I didn't show up today, the class would go on as if I was here today. Right? And this is important so I can think about other things, next steps.
What I really like about working here at Bayyinah is the environment. I mean, all the students here, they all have the same intention, the same goal, to get closer to the Quran.
My favorite thing about working at Bayyinah is that it's never the same. You know, every day is different. We've always got new projects going on, new ways of serving the community, especially with the community's feedback and keeping in mind what people are looking for in Arabic and Quranic studies.
You know, just the interaction with everybody, seeing them every day, it creates that brotherhood, and it makes you know, the relationship stronger, and it will last, you know, for a lifetime, you know, inshallah.
my advice to entrepreneurs is not, you know, there will be a time in the beginning where you have to give like a lot to get things off the ground, but you need to limit that time, because if you if you go from one, you know, exhaustive, immersive effort to the next exhaustive, immersive effort within your entrepreneurial work, you're going to lose your family. That's just the bottom line. You're going to lose your family, and you can't afford to do that. You can only make that kind of immersive effort for like a short amount of time, and you have to set on yourself, I can't do this anymore, and you have to work towards doing less. Like my goal right now is to do less. That's my job. There are like 30 projects happening in Bayyinah. I know about none of them. I just come and teach. They're all kind of running. There are people running them at this point, and they give me info once in a while about what's going on and fill me in, and I give them guidance on what needs to be done. But alhamdulillah, if you can't find trust in people, you're not going to be able to make your organization work. You know, because it's not about you anymore. It's about the work itself. You know, just last year, we were at our reunion, at student reunion, and TAs and volunteers and teachers all together. And there's like a good 150 people running around at this picnic, and I'm looking around like, wow, we're this massive family. You know, these are not just people I meet at a program. These people are Bayyinah. They're this, and they all have a role to play. And, you know, they're doing stuff. So it's actually pretty remarkable that has been able to take place. And I think if you don't create that, then you're not going to have an organization that's going to go far. You want to eat something? We just ate a shower. Ice cream? Yeah. Did you just ice cream? Okay, I've got shoes.
Let's go.
It's my weakness, man. It's been kryptonite for me. I will stop a khutbah for ice cream.
Yeah, you got that on camera as well. I will stop a khutbah for ice cream.
Yeah, if someone's like cookies and cream, I'm like, all right, let's wrap it up.